Let's face it, everyone wants to be helpful and everybody has an opinion, but unless they have the complete context for what you're going through, the chances of them being able to really help you are incredibly low. Today, we're going to give you an actionable methodology for diagnosing and sorting out problems on your kit so that you can get back to the business of playing drums. In this age of the internet, we have access to a tremendous amount of information and also a tremendous amount of misinformation. Not necessarily nefarious, but it is out there. Sometimes the quickest way to an answer is not necessarily the best one, so we want to make sure and give you a system so that you can overstep that misinformation and actually get to the root of your issues. We have a vast collection of videos and materials online that are all geared toward helping you get inspirational sounds out of your drums. In the absence of us sitting right there next to you working through sonic issues you're having with your kit, which we obviously can't do, we are presenting today a list, a workbook, if you will, for how to figure out exactly what's going on when you're frustrated with the sound out of one or all of the drums on your kit. In order to stay focused, our scope is going to be fairly narrow today. We are just talking about acoustic drum sounds from the drum throne. So if you're having a recording issue or a live performance issue, something like that, this is not going to be dealing with those things specifically. Let's dive in with the broad fundamental statement. I don't like how my drums sound. The first question we have to ask ourselves is if we have liked the sound of this equipment in this space before. If the answer is yes, then right away we can move to what has changed since the last time we liked it. This could be anything from the tuning to the heads, to the sticks that we're using, to where in the room the drum set might be placed. If we can get back to where we were the last time we liked it in terms of all of those variables, then we have a place to work from. If our answer is no, now we have some options. Are we applying unrealistic expectations to acoustic drum sounds in the environment that we're playing? Oftentimes, we give ourselves unrealistic reference points for what to expect out of acoustic drums, be it from listening to highly produced recordings or perhaps simply listening to drums that are configured in a drastically different way than the kit that we currently use. It's worth taking everything into account there, from the sorts of heads or muffling or possibly production techniques that are going into making those sounds, and making sure that we're not expecting things of this drum set that are impossible because of other factors that are out of our control. Over the course of years and years and hundreds of episodes, one of the defining things that has kept us going and facilitated this is our Patreon. It's the best way to support us and allow us to continue to disseminate this information, do these experiments, and share all of it with you every single week. Without that help, there's no telling how much longer we'll be able to do this. Every little bit helps, so please follow the link below and throw your hat in the ring to help us continue to make this show. Now let's consider this. Have we liked sounds of equipment in this room, but different equipment than what we're using today? If the case is yes, then we should look at the variables that have changed between that equipment and this. Drum sizes, drum heads, anything we can think of that could possibly be differentiating the current setup from the one that made us happy. Now, if the answer is no, if we've never liked the sound of equipment in this room before, this could start to lead us to considering the environment that we're playing in, the state of the room, how high are the ceilings, what are the walls and the floor made of, because these all, as we've said many times in previous videos, affect the sound of the drum set, particularly in terms of sitting at it and playing, all of that sound coming back at us from that room. The topic of acoustic sound treatment, especially for drums, is worthy of a channel unto itself. We could go on and on. We're going to assume for today that you have a cursory understanding of the effect of the acoustic nature of the room that you're in and the effects that it's going to have on your perception of the sound of your kit. One thing we can do immediately without buying a bunch of acoustic treatment is to move the kit around in the room that we play and see what effect that has on our perception of the sound of it. There's a possibility that you may have it in the corner, which might accentuate bass frequencies and maybe even make your rack tom sound a little bit dead for unknown physical reasons. Or perhaps you have your bass drum pressed up against the wall and are struggling to hear the low end coming from it. Realize that the drum set's proximity to everything else in the space that you're playing is going to change its sound, particularly where you're sitting. Let's zoom in a little bit closer now and consider the question, is the issue we're experiencing limited to a single drum on the drum set, or is it more than one or possibly one type of drum on the drum set that's exhibiting the issue? If you're experiencing an issue with multiple drums, there are a few different versions of this that can exist that don't have anything to do necessarily with the environment that we're in. Examples can include sympathetic resonance between the bass drum and the snare drum, where it's not that the snare sounds bad or that the bass drum sounds bad, but that together they're causing a problem. Another common issue is taking a prescription for tuning, such as an interval or a head type, spreading it across many toms, for instance, and then wondering why it works well on one size and sounds terrible on another, rather than experimenting with tuning for the sake of sound. Another common struggle is tuning your drums outside of their comfortable tuning range and then wondering why you're not getting a positive result. There are lots more issues than these that can affect multiple drums on your kit. The thing to keep in mind is that if you are experiencing an issue across multiple drums, there is some kind of continuity issue there that's worth addressing, and make sure that you use your ears and go slowly as you start to address those issues and never jump to conclusions. Now, on the other hand, if you are only experiencing a struggle with a single drum, now we have to actually start addressing the parts of that drum, the constituent aspects that make the drum sound. At this point, it's worthwhile removing the heads, removing the hoops, and checking the drum overall for structural issues such as bent hoops, out of roundness in the hoops or the shell, and also the state of the bearing edge to make sure that there isn't any kind of damage either from the manufacturer or that it incurred in its lifetime. It is super important to note that we might expect brand new drums to be perfect in every way. That's not necessarily the case. It's worth checking all of these details regardless of if they're fresh off the shelf and look absolutely brand new, because at the end of the day, things can sneak past a manufacturer, and also drums can get damaged in nearly invisible ways in transit. We have to check. If we've reached this point and everything is still okay, we haven't found any issues, now we're finally looking at the setup that we're using and the tuning itself. The order that we recommend looking into these issues is to start with the mounting. For instance, if you have a rack tom that's on a snare stand or that's mounted in such a way that doesn't include any kind of suspension, it's possible that its tone is getting stifled by the sheer weight of the drum. More alarming is that it could also be performing poorly on the latest and greatest suspension mount system if it's either installed incorrectly or has incurred some kind of damage along the course of its life. We have videos that address each of these issues independently, both for rack toms, for floor toms, and the rest of the kit. It's worthwhile stepping back and checking out those and seeing if this is an issue you're experiencing. The next stop on this plan is looking at the state of the heads, specifically age and wear and tear, because again, they don't last forever. And even if you don't play them that often, if they've been on there for a really long time, they will stretch over time and start to lose their tone and their resonance, regardless of what they look like. This goes doubly for reso heads because we never hit them, so they never look worn out. But the fact of the matter is they're receiving energy every time we hit the drum, and they wear out just the same. Assuming that our heads are in good shape, perhaps we should consider the expectations we have of the heads that we've chosen. There are drum heads that are more versatile in terms of tuning range and tone, and some that are more specialized. But ultimately, we want to be using the right tool for the job, so make sure that for the sound you're looking for, you're using the heads that are designed to get you that sound. Again, we have lots of videos discussing this, both in terms of specialized heads and absolute run-of-the-mill heads. And ultimately, if you're curious about the capabilities of your drum, we still recommend trying something middle of the road and figuring out what your drum does with that before you start branching into more specialized ones. Now, a quick word about muffling. If you have muffling on the offending drum, consider taking it off to see if the issue persists without the muffling. If we take the muffling off and the issue goes away, great. However, If we take it off and the issue persists, this gives us a clearer window into what exactly is happening with the drum without the muffling getting in the way of our understanding. Now, at long last, we have reached the final step, tuning. All other variables have been exhausted. We have a lot of videos about tuning every single drum on your drum set, and this is the time to cycle back to those now that we've checked out every other possibility and get in line with what it means to have the drum in tune with itself and how to control the two heads, or one head if it only has one, to get the sound that we're actually looking for. There is one other thing we have to talk about, and it might be the bummer of the group, and it is that not all drums are created equal, and in this era of lots of small custom manufacturers and also big manufacturers that are experimenting, there are drums that just by virtue of their construction style don't sound very good. This could be a limited tuning range, it could be a snare with no snare beds, or it could be frankly anything. But after all of these other options have been exhausted, we do have to consider the possibility that we might just have a drum that has a structural issue. There's not a whole lot that we can do about that. This is one of the moments where it is always worthwhile, if possible, to check out instruments in person before we make purchases, and also dive into what makes a drum do what it does so that we can be informed when we're purchasing instruments. It's also very important to keep in mind that a lot of variables, again, go into the sound of the drum, so we can't necessarily blame a shell style or a shell material or a bearing edge style or a snare bed style or a hoop style for why a drum does or doesn't give us a great sound. If along the way in this process, one of these issues pertains really specifically to what you're struggling with, for instance, snare buzz, jump over to our channel and search snare buzz, because we have tagged the videos specifically to make them easily searchable based on the issue you're having. That'll take you right to the video that'll help you solve your problem. Anytime you want, you can go on the internet, you can ask a question on a forum and get tens, hundreds of answers of people who are sure that they know exactly how to solve your problem with no context, not enough information, and probably not the experience necessary to diagnose the issue in the first place. This is literally how we came to start this channel. We were hoping to fill this void of misinformation, disinformation, and general confusion, and allow people to understand this instrument that they play every day so that they can enjoy it, be inspired, and get to the fun part of playing without any frustration. That's why we have spent all this time delving deep into hyper-specific topics like the method in which you mount your snare wires, or how long your bass drum beater shaft should be, or what happens when you take a tension rod out of your snare drum. Does it sound good? Let's find out. This is all in furtherance of cutting through the noise and getting down to usable, actionable information that'll get us what we want out of the kit.